Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. I'm Ann Thayer, contributing editor to the CNEN Media Group, and I'll be moderating today's event. This webinar is entitled Large-Scale Grignard Reagents Production via Flow Process with Chemium and Valsynthese. CNEN works with sponsors to identify topics of interest and value to CNEN's audience and consistent with CNEN's mission to provide news and analysis of the chemistry enterprise in a timely, accurate, and balanced fashion. Just a few technical items before we begin. During the webinar, you can adjust the size of the slides on your screen by grabbing the lower right corner with your mouse. If you need technical assistance, please look at the Help widget or type your query into the Q&A box. If you're disconnected during the webcast, please log in again according to the instructions you received earlier. You're also encouraged to contribute to the success of this webinar by asking questions at any time during the presentation through the Q&A box on your screen. The questions will be answered at the end of the presentation, and as your moderator, I'll be posing as many as time permits. Please note that CNEN does not endorse any company, products, or services that may be mentioned in the webinars, and that each webinar will be archived at CNEN Online after the live webcast. The presentation today is being sponsored by Valsynthese and Chemium. Valsynthese, part of the SSE Group, is a Swiss CDMO specializing in high energetic and hazardous chemistry. It is active in the fields of custom synthesis and contract manufacturing for the chemical and pharmaceutical industries. The firm manufactures fine and specialty chemicals, advanced intermediates, and active pharmaceutical ingredients. Meanwhile, Chemium provides innovative solutions for challenging chemical intermediates using flow chemistry. Its focus is on maximizing process efficiency and reducing environmental footprint, both in its own and its customers' processes. The company's vision is to translate the long-established efficiency mindset of the petrochemical industry to other sectors of the chemical industry. During the presentation today, we'll hear from two speakers. First will be Daniel Latassa of Valsynthese. As a PhD student, he had the opportunity to explore interdisciplinary fields such as heterogeneous catalysis, supramolecular chemistry, and solid phase synthesis. After postdoctoral studies, he became a project leader first at Polyphore and then at Lonza. He spent a period of time teaching science and, since 2014, has been working for Valsynthese, first as a senior chemist in process development and now as business development manager. Our second speaker will be Dr. Odrik Nagy. He studied chemistry at UC Leuven in Belgium, where he obtained his PhD degree. After spending 1 year as a process development chemist in the pharmaceutical industry, he joined Chemium as R&D manager of the Fine Chemicals Department to contribute to the development of the MgFlow technology. I'll now hand things over to Daniel.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Truly appreciate it. It's terrific. In 2 minutes, you just summarized 20 years of my life. So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. My name is Dr. Daniel Latassa, and together with my colleague, Dr. Odrik Nagy, we will have the pleasure today to present you this webinar. I will first start with the part of Valsynthese. I will show you who is Valsynthese, where are we located, and what we are currently doing. And of course, I will go through our core competencies. And I will also demonstrate you why Valsynthese was interested on this technology and collaboration. After this part, my colleague, Dr. Odrik Nagy, will dive into the details about this MgFlow technology. And finally, after this part, I will illustrate why Valsynthese is an ideal partner for this specific technology. At last, but not at least, we will go through the entire process of this fruitful collaboration process, which started in June 2022 in Frankfurt. So I hope you will enjoy. Let's start the webinar. So I cannot speak about Valsynthese without mentioning the company SSE Group. SSE meaning Société Suisse des Explosifs, Swiss Society of Explosives. And it all began in 1894 with the creation of the SSE, and at that time, the SSE
needed civil explosives to build the Simplon tunnel. And from now on, I will only speak about civil explosives because the SSA does not produce explosives for military purposes. This is quite important to mention. So at that time, they identified the perfect place in Gamsen to create this company and provide civil explosives for the construction of the Simplon tunnel, which is a strategic act between the north and the south. The SSA group has two-leg strategy. The one leg is the Société Suisse des Explosifs, and the SSA is a manufacturer and service provider of civil explosives and solutions. So this is one of the main activities here at Gamsen. And the second leg is Valsynthese. And Valsynthese is a CDMO, Contract Development Manufacturing Organization, of intermediates and APIs for the fine chemical and pharmaceutical industry. The origin of Valsynthese is quite obvious. It is all linked with the nitration technology, which is used to produce nitroglycerin. And at that time, nitroglycerin, as you know, is the component of dynamite. And Valsynthese used this technology and the know-how generated through the years at SSA to synthesize nitroglycerin and to sell nitroglycerin not as an explosive, but as an API. And nowadays we are still producing nitroglycerin formulated in diverse solvents for pharmaceutical application. So it all happened in the 70s, and the name Valsynthese only happened in 1983 thanks the joint venture of SSA and UPSA. UPSA is a French pharmaceutical company, quite known, and since 1983, Valsynthese is known in the fine chemical world. Are the core competencies of Valsynthese? Obviously, the nitration. So we can perform at Valsynthese mononitration on aromatic derivatives, but also dinitration. We can also provide alkyl nitrate and alkyl nitrate to our customers. Very important for this Grignard processes is chlorination and bromination. At Valsynthese, we can perform this kind of chemistry using corrosive reagents like thionyl chloride or oxalyl chloride, for instance. We also have competencies on hydrogenation. It makes full sense to have hydrogenation if you can perform nitration. You can access to amino derivatives from the nitro derivatives, but you can also access to very interesting molecules for electronic applications like HBTA. BTA and HBTA belong to our catalog portfolio and are used in electronic applications. Of course, we have also at Valsynthese phogenation. If you can access to amino aromatics, for instance, and if you have the phogenation as technology on site, you can, for instance, offer to your customers azocyanates using Grignard reagents. So very toxic chemistry, hazardous chemistry is our core competencies. We also can perform Diels-Alder reactions involving high temperature and high pressure. Very interesting for companies dealing with fragrance and flavors. So high temperature, high pressure. This is something we perform since years here at Valsynthese. Isoprene chemistry, quite sensitive. We can use, as I mentioned before, very toxic reagents. I just mentioned phosgene, but here you can see that CLAC, chloroacetyl chloride, is also a very toxic reagent. Phosgene is a gas, CLAC is a liquid, and we can use this reagent to perform intercyclization to access key intermediates for the pharma companies. And finally, Grignard. This is something which was performed in the past at Valsynthese, but batch-wise. And this is exactly the link with Chemium, because we at Valsynthese are very interested on innovation and on flow chemistry. And this with Chemium is a perfect match, knowing that at the group level, we have a project called Resonance. And Resonance, the goal of this project is to be a market pioneer in innovation, sustainability, and premium services within the civil explosives and fine chemical sector. So it makes fully sense with this technology at Valsynthese, because it has to deal with Grignard chemistry, it has to deal with flow technology, it has to deal with innovation. So we immediately recognize the potential of this collaboration. Grignard is a very powerful chemistry, and Grignard reagents are versatile reagents which can give you access to various key intermediates in the fine chemical world. So immediately recognize the benefit of this technology, and in a few months we implemented this squid developed by Chemium in our facilities here at Camden. As you can see, the squid looks like a huge fridge, and we were very proud that in a few months together with Chemium, we implemented this technology here at Valsynthese in an industrial environment. And now my colleague, Dr. Audric Nagy, will dive into the details of this great technology.
Thank you, Daniel, for walking us through the history of Valsynthese and also for explaining the encounter between our two companies. And now it's time to dive a little more into Chemium. So Chemium is a Belgian chemtech company located in Louvain-la-Neuve, just next to Brussels. And as mentioned by Daniel a couple of minutes ago, we have a production site that is currently located in Switzerland on the site of Valsynthese. For the last 15 years, Chemium has been active in the development and optimization of heterogeneous catalysts for the polyolefin and petrochemical industries. And with these roots in petrochemicals, where efficiency is a real key driver, Chemium decided to bring some of this efficiency mindset to the fine chemical world. And this was materialized in the form of a new business, which was around the development of new reactor technologies, namely flow technologies, that would bring efficiency into the fine chemical world, where the standard is batch chemistry. And that is precisely today's topic. So the actual story started with OTBN, which is the compound that is described here on the slide. And OTBN is a key pharmaceutical intermediate for the synthesis of many APIs that belong to the family of sartans. Sartans are APIs used to treat hypertension. And as you can see in the blue box in the bottom of the slide, many patients are relying on these medicines to treat their health issues, both in the US, but also globally. And actually, the issue with this OTBN was and still is, that the sources of these key pharmaceutical intermediates are Asian-based, meaning that European pharma companies are relying on Asian supplies to synthesize their medicines. And this is how the idea grew at Chemium to look into the synthesis of OTBN and become a supplier of this compound in Europe. So the first step of the project was to look into the synthesis pathway of OTBN, and this is described in the gray box on the top of the slide. And very fast, we were attracted by this compound that is circled in red, which is a Grignard reagent. And very quickly, it was obvious that sourcing this material was not going to be an option given the volumes that are required for OTBN, meaning that Chemium and the team was left with the synthesis of Grignard reagents. And pretty quickly, this became a challenge because obviously in batch, synthesizing those Grignard reagents became a red flag because of the well-known risk and safety issues that are well-known both for the Grignard processes but also for batch chemistry. Namely, we can cite stability of the Grignard reagent, the difficult induction of this chemistry, and the difficult heat management, among others. And this is where the history of Chemium as a petrochemical company was very useful, because in petrochemicals, working in flow is very much a settled technology and is very much standard. So it was very logical for Chemium's team to think of flow processing to synthesize those Grignard reagents. And so the team at the time started looking at what kind of technology was available on the market to synthesize Grignard reagents, but obviously nothing on the market was ticking the boxes that we were looking for, namely reliability, commercial scalability, or operational safety. And since we couldn't find anything from the bench to affect this chemical transformation, the idea grew within Chemium to develop our own technology to synthesize Grignard reagents, and that was really the starting point of the MgFlow story. So after several years of research and development, we are proud to introduce you to the MgFlow technology, which is basically a microfluidic reactor equipped with a solid feeder on the top and a process analytical tool on the side. Reagents are fed continuously to the system. They might be liquids, solids, or gases, and the production flows out via a PAT, a process analytical tools that controls the quality of the effluent fluid at any second. And this PAT not only controls the quality, but also gives feedback to the system that is able to adapt its processes based on the feedback given by the PAT. So it can, for instance, adapt the flow rate of the reagents in order to remain within specifications. But you can also see that there is an exit valve at the end that can direct out of specification product to the waste bin in order not to contaminate the production. And here, what is very important to keep in mind is that the whole system is very much automated and doesn't require human intervention. And this really brings a big level of safety that is not available with typical batch Grignard processes. So now that I have explained the background of Chemium and the process design around the MgFlow technology, I would like to tell you 3 case studies to highlight some of the benefits brought to the Grignard process by the MgFlow technology. And I would like to start right away by explaining the scale-up with the MgFlow technology. So here on this slide, I would simply like to show you the different scales of MgFlow reactors that were developed so far. And on the left, in blue, you can see the development tools, while on the right, in red, you see the manufacturing tools. And basically, the key message from this slide lies on the top between the 2 kind of tools. And the message is that in weeks, we can step from development scale to production scale. And this is really something that is not possible in batch. And if you look at the top row of the table, you can have a look at the capacity that are made possible with each of the scales of reactor. For instance, for development tools, we speak of a few milliliters an hour and maybe a couple of liters an hour. And when we step to manufacturing, we quickly speak of dozens and a few hundreds of kilograms of Grignard solutions that may be produced every hour. So here, we are looking at the typical scale-up process for Grignard process under MgFlow conditions. And this might maybe seem a little counterintuitive, but here, using MgFlow, we have to spend the most of the effort in the early phases of the development and the scale-up, namely what we call the feasibility, the flowability that is highlighted in the red box, because when you compare it with batch, where heat management is really the issue when scaling up, here, thanks to the benefits of flow processing, heat management is not an issue at all, but we rather have to take care of everything that is around viscosities and solubilities of the reaction mixtures, because we want to avoid what is depicted on the pictures below. Namely, if you look at the left picture on the bottom, you see a very nice example of one of our reactor cross section that has been completely clogged. We also notice a very nice channeling there. And basically what happened is that some solid was formed during the process, and this solid completely cemented the solid magnesium into the system, and this is something that we really want to avoid. That's the reason why we spend a lot of effort at the early stages to find right conditions to avoid formation of solids, and once this is done, the rest is a piece of cake. We just have to step to the pilot phase to develop the process parameters, and once we have those in hand, we can seamlessly transfer them to any commercial unit and start fully automated commercial campaigns. And once we get to the commercial scale, we have nice monitoring graphs that look like this one. In this instance, in these examples, we were producing isopropyl magnesium chloride. That is actually a production campaign that occurred a couple of weeks ago at Valsynthese. And this production was running at a rate of 50 kilograms an hour. And most importantly, this is a 24/7 operation. So this campaign started a Monday morning, and it was interrupted at the end of the campaign, somewhere Friday in the evening. And in between, you see those monitoring curves that are pretty smooth and steady. For instance, we have the blue curve, which depicts the density of the flow of the output flow, and the red curve is showing the average temperature within the reactor, and you see that it is very stable. And this is only one example, but actually this might be copy-pasted to any other Grignard, and so far we have exemplified to over 20 examples of Grignard reagents at this commercial scale. And we also have validated the fact that we are not limited to liquid reagents, but we could also use gaseous reagents. You may think of bromomethane, for instance, or chloroethane that are very much compatible with our technology. So all in all, what you need to remember is that in a couple of weeks, we step from the laboratory to a mature production process that was, in this case, able to deliver 6 tons over 1 week of production. Now, I would like to step to another case study, which is about unlocking new synthetic space. So here, in this case study, I would like to speak about an anisole Grignard derivative, which is very useful, again, for the synthesis of some APIs. In this case, tapentadol and tramadol, which are both generic painkillers with huge markets. And the typical process relies on the bromo-anisole derivative that you can see in the gray box. That is very efficient in terms of chemistry, but is a rather costly reagent. On the other side, we have the chloroanisole derivative that would be able to do the same job instead, but is way cheaper than the bromo derivative. But when you look at the chemistry of that chloroanisole derivative, it is very not much reported in literature. Whenever it's reported, it is reported as being impossible, slow, and yielding very bad selectivities. Nevertheless, at Chemium, we decided to give it a go in the laboratory, and we tried it out on one of our laboratory MgFlow reactors. And I invite you to look at the left graph and at the blue curve on the left graph. First, we were able to start this chemistry in an MgFlow reactor, and the blue curve actually describes the density of the output flow. And you see that increasing density is correlated actually with increasing concentration. So we took basically 1 day to increase the concentration without reaching any issues in terms of solubility. And then the next day, that is depicted on the right graph, we came back to the lab, we switched on the reactor, and instantly we were back in operational mode, and we were able to produce this very complex Grignard in a steady state for 8 hours. And the results of this R&D campaigns are very nice, because we could get 17% in weight Grignard solution with a nice yield of above 98%, and more importantly, the selectivity was also above 98, which is in strong contradiction with whatever is possible in batch. So now I would like to go over a last case study about the operational efficiency of the MgFlow technology. So first, I would like to go over the manpower that is necessary to monitor a production using MgFlow technology compared to batch. And basically, as it was already mentioned, MgFlow is very much automated, meaning that you can divide by 4 the energy and the people efforts required to monitor a production campaign of an MgFlow reactor. Next, in terms of maintenance, it's very much reduced compared to batch, because being a continuous technology, it doesn't require interruptions, and we simply have to clean some filters from time to time and replace a couple of sealings as a preventive action. And finally, in terms of chemistry, the yields that can be achieved using MgFlow are very high and usually above 95%. To conclude this case study, let's talk about the energy consumptions of the MgFlow technology. First, here you can see a graph showing the energy consumption of a typical Grignard process in batch. And here on the bottom of the slide, you can see a similar graph describing the energy consumption of an MgFlow reactor. And what is very obvious when you compare the two graphs is that the curves described in the bottom graph of the MgFlow are very straight and steady, meaning that you have no overshoots and a very steady energy consumption when you compare it to the batch monitoring curve. And at the end of the day, this allows you to save about 20% of energy compared to typical batch processes for Grignards. And also, as we don't have energy consumption overshoots with the MgFlow technology, as is for instance the case during the initiation of a batch Grignard process, we can also avoid over-designing the equipment such as thermostats or heat exchanger, and this at the end allows us to save a lot of money in capex. So now that I've been over the 3 case studies, I would like to recap briefly before continuing. So first, remember that scaling up using MgFlow is very easy and fast. It's a couple of weeks to step from the lab to some mature commercial process. Then we are able to unlock chemistries that are described as being impossible. So if you have something that looks impossible, please assess MgFlow technologies to unlock that. And finally, I think that I've showed that operational and energetic efficiency of the MgFlow technology is able to overcome the hurdles that can be met in batch. And now I would like to give the microphone back to Daniel, who is going to explain you how the MgFlow technology is integrated within Valsynthese's strategy.
Thank you very much, Audric, for the details of this MgFlow technology. I'm still quite impressed of this technology and the complexity. So now I would like to show you why Valsynthese was selected as an ideal partner for this Grignard technology. The first strength of Valsynthese for this specific technology is the fact, as I mentioned before, that we can produce Rx. So if a customer needs an exotic Rx, we can perform bromination or chlorination with several reagents like chonyl chloride, oxalyl chloride, phosgene, HCl, hydrobromic acid, TMS bromide, and so on. So this is quite an advantage for this collaboration. The second great strength that Valsynthese possesses is the management of hazardous chemistry, gained through years with the nitration technology, since we are producing explosives. So through the years, we gain a lot of knowledge how to deal with the risk, and this is a great advantage when you have such a partner with you. Another important point to mention is that at Valsynthese, we can perform synthesis down to -20 degrees Celsius. So if a customer wants Valsynthese to perform the downstream process with the freshly produced Grignard reagents, we can perform the synthesis at Valsynthese here in Gansen. Another important aspect to mention is the recycling of the solvents. For the Grignard processes, you need to use quite a huge amount of solvents like THF, methyl THF, MTBA, dibutyl ether, and so on. So you need to have the facility to recycle your solvents, and in terms of sustainability is nowadays very important. And this aspect is, of course, at Valsynthese of paramount importance, and we allocate a lot of efforts to recycle all the solvents we need. Of course, being a CDMO and producing tons of products in a quite big industrial environment, you need a powerful logistic. So this is again a strength that we have for this specific collaboration with Chemium. We are not limited with the logistic, dealing with a lot of raw materials, solvents, shipment of products, and so on. So it's our daily business here at Valsynthese. Finally, to release the products, you need to have all the certifications, and since we are a CDMO, we have all the required certifications here at Valsynthese to produce under ISO and GMP environment, and even under halal and kosher environment. Now I would like to show you how this collaboration was made within a very short period of time. It all happened in June 22 at Chemspec in Frankfurt. We were approached by Chemium, and they were looking for a partner to support them with this technology in an industrial scale. We immediately recognized the powerful technology of this MgFlow, and we immediately dived into the discussion. We visited Chemium in Louvain-la-Neuve in August 22, and then we entered into contract and collaboration on December 22. We started the implementation of the script at Valsynthese in July 23, and since September 2023, we are producing Grignard reagents on ton scales together with Chemium. So within 14 months, we implemented a new technology from a company located in Belgium, and I can say that this was really a breakthrough, and we are very proud of this collaboration. And now my colleague Audrey will explain what are the next steps and milestones in front of us.
Thank you, Daniel. Yes, a very nice and fruitful collaboration indeed that we both can be very proud of. And yeah, so now looking at the future, what are the next steps? Well, already this year in February, we hit a record, being able to produce continuously for 6 weeks above the design capacity of the manufacturing MgFlow reactor, which is a very nice milestone. And today, as we speak, we are currently implementing a turbo Grignard process at Valsynthese. That is going to be a big project for both of us. Next, in November of this year, we are going to install a new reactor that is 4 times bigger in capacity than the current one that we have. So this is currently being built in Belgium and soon to be installed. And then we have 2 further objectives that we are working on, which is first the XFlow, which is basically using our same MgFlow technology and apply it to other metals, such as lithium, tin, zinc, or aluminum, or even others. And also, what we are in the process of developing is the downstream synthesis steps in flow mode. So basically using the Grignards synthesized by the MgFlow directly in flow in order to produce value-added intermediates for the chemical industry.
So thank you very much, Audrey. I think we have some big challenges in front of us, and this is the beauty of chemistry, of technology, and we are really looking forward. I guess we reach the end of this inspiring webinar, and Audrey and myself acknowledge you for the kind attention. And just for your information, we will attend ChemSpec in Cologne beginning of June, and we will be more than happy to meet you there and discuss on this fantastic technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Danielle and Audrey, for that very interesting presentation. We now have time for some questions. Let's start with one for Danielle. Danielle, the technology towards the Grignard reagents that you just presented is based on flow technology. Does Valsynthese have flow technology for other chemistries?
That's a very good question. Actually, Valsynthese is very interested to develop this technology here, and together with the project with Chemium and this MgFlow technology, we are investing a lot of effort to develop chemistries using flow technology. And this belongs to our milestone for the near future, and I hope that we can offer to our customers in a few months these services using flow chemistry. Yes, indeed. Very important here at Valsynthese.
Great, thank you. Let's take one for Audrey. Audrey, how do you explain the process interruptions that were observed on the monitoring graphs in your presentation?
Yeah, I see. Indeed, the example that we chose to exhibit shows 2 process interruptions. and these are simply due to the emptying of the raw material drums. So for these campaigns, we simply used 200-liter drums, which were empty, and no one was there to supply a new drum of raw material. But this is a good example to show the robustness and the benefits of the MgFlow reactor, since you see that all this happened automatically, and actually once the reactor detected the lack of raw material, it stopped automatically. And once a new drum of raw material was reconnected, it was able to restart in a couple of seconds and was instantly working in a steady state on specification. And you may remember that there was no need to reinitiate the reactor. So it's a very nice way to illustrate the benefits of the MgFlow.
Let's take another question about the MgFlow. What's your experience when applying the MgFlow technology to other metal elements?
Well, as you've seen, we have a lot of experience using magnesium and, in other words, Grignard reagents. We also try to exemplify the technology using zinc. For instance, we used this technology to synthesize reformat scale reagents. But for these kind of reagents, we were limited to development tools. We didn't go to commercial productions, but we are simply awaiting the good fit, the good customer to make the step and start working on commercial scale for these zinc reagents. And basically any other metal that would be able to be treated continuously and react with organic material would be suitable to be used in the MgFlow technology with very limited modifications.
Great, thank you. Daniel, we have another question for you. Does Valsynthese cover only hazardous chemistry?
Obviously not. As you could have seen on the presentation, our main competencies rely on hazardous chemistry indeed. But we cover all kind of organic chemistry and as a CDMO, and we are not limited actually on the kind of chemistry. Of course, we evaluate all kind of synthesis projects dealing with organic chemistry, but it's true our main competences is the manipulation of hazardous chemistry.
Great, thank you. Audric, we have a specific question regarding your presentation. How can you explain the greater selectivity observed in the anisole Grignard topic when compared to the batch data?
Okay, I see. Well, it is multifactorial. First of all, we have to say that we are in the presence of a real big excess of metal within this system, meaning that we have between, depending on the chemistry, 20 and 100 equivalent excess of metal, and that really boosts the kinetics of the formation of the desired compounds versus the byproducts. And also, as we are working in a steady state flow chemistry, we don't have temperature overshoots. And these temperature overshoots that are observed in batch are the main reason for the production of side products. And here, as we are very steady in terms of temperature and heat management, we are more likely to have these byproducts being formed.
Great, thank you for answering that question. Daniel, another one for you. You mentioned that you can produce under CGMP environment. Do you produce APIs?
Yes, definitely. As I mentioned in the presentation, all our facilities are qualified ISO and GMP. So we are at the moment here at Valsynthese, we have 3 APIs that we are currently producing, and all the 3 APIs are produced since years. So we have a long history of production under GMP environment, and we have also drug master files. So production in GMP environment at Valsynthese is something that we perfectly know, and we are very proud as well to be able to offer to our customers not only ISO environment but GMP environment. Even intermediates in GMP environment we can produce here at Valsynthese.
Great, thank you for that answer. Audric, how about another one for you? What kind of downstream transformations are considered under continuous flow?
Well, basically, any transformation that is possible with the Grignard reagent would be considered at Chemium and at Valsynthese, because storing Grignard reagents is not something that is easy to do. It's rather something that we do when we have no choice. And using the Grignard reagents that we produce with the MgFlow instantly is very the best choice in terms of safety and logistics. So any Grignard transformation would be assessed. And of course, the more dangerous it is, the best suited it would be for flow processing.
Great, thank you. We now have an upstream process question for Danielle. Regarding the upstream process, and particularly the RX starting material, which halogenation reagents is the company using?
We are using, as I mentioned during the presentation, diverse halogenating reagents. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we can perform chlorination and bromination. We use standard chlorination reagents, for instance, thionyl chloride or oxalyl chloride. But since we have also the phosgene installation here on site, we could use phosgene as chlorine sources, or even elemental chlor for performing chlorination. In terms of bromination, we can use hydrobromic acid, aqueous hydrobromic acid, for instance, or even 3-methylsilyl bromide as bromide reagent, or even elemental bromine. This is something we can perform here at Valsynthese. So basically, we are not limited. We study case to case all the projects we receive regarding the production of RX for the Grignard process.
Great, thank you. And on a related note, we have a question for Audric about the current capabilities of the magnesium flow technology. What types of reagents, solvents, or working temperatures might be limitations to the technology?
Well, in terms of reagents, we do not really have limitations. Both halides and solvents that are typical to Grignard processes may be used. I've mentioned earlier that we validated the MgFlow using even gaseous reagents. Let's see, maybe solid halides would need to be put in a solution, but beyond that, there is really no limitation in terms of reagents. And looking at the temperatures, well, we have a limitation that is around 120 degrees Celsius. Beyond that, we have some equipment that is not working perfectly anymore. But again, thanks to the high level of automation of the MgFlow system, we have automated stops in case we are coming close to those limiting temperatures.
Great. Thank you for that, Audric. I think we're going to wrap things up there. Thank you, both of you, for answering so many questions. I'm afraid that's all the time we have. Thank you again, Daniel and Audric, for your fascinating presentation. And thank you to all the participants for being a great audience. Please be sure to check CNEN or CNEN Online for the replay of this webinar and for the information on the next edition of CNEN webinars. Thanks to On24 for technology and production services. And thank you, Valsynthese and Chemium, for the sponsorship that made this interactive webcast possible. For CNEN webinars, I'm Ann Thayer. Hope you all have a good day.